Hey everyone, I wanted to welcome you to the French Dream Castle, and I'm here on location at this unbelievable 49-room palace in France, where today we're going to go in depth about filming for photographers. Now, this is a really fun subject because so many of us all have these awesome cameras that not only shoot great photographic content, but they also shoot amazing video content. But oftentimes they're just sitting there and not being used for video. So today we're going to go in depth about how do we do that? How can we create some absolutely spectacular videos, but as a photographer? So this is going to be a really fun one. And this is one in which I have a lot of experience with because I started out, of course, only doing photography, only doing still photography. And for me, I have, I really thought of myself only as a still image maker, which many of you guys are as well. But throughout time, I realized that although still is awesome, video really opens up a lot of doors. Meaning, when you're shooting video, it allows you to shoot more opportunities, allows you to shoot bigger campaigns, and to make more money per shoot. And also, a lot of times as a photographer, especially if we're trying to shoot a major advertising campaign, clients are going to hire a production company anyways. They're going to hire a production company to shoot a commercial, like a video commercial for the campaign. And then they're going to maybe hire the photographer separately. And oftentimes always, the budget for the video is always going to be substantially more than the photography. I say, why not get a bigger piece of the pie? And that's one of the things in which I fell in love with early on in my career. And I realized that as a photographer, we're kind of at the bottom of the totem pole as far as who's getting paid. And if you want to make a lot of money and you want to create great, content, get into shooting video, especially because you have all the gear already, right? You don't need some, ultra high-end Alexa or Red camera, which are the big motion picture cameras. We can get into it just with our high-end cameras that shoot photography, but they also happen to shoot video. Now, many of you guys do know me. I mean, I have been, shooting as a celebrity fashion photographer my entire career. I shoot campaigns for Burberry, for Giorgio Armani, and I also, major lifestyle campaigns for major health and wellness brands, as well as shooting lifestyle, shooting for pharmaceuticals, shooting for hair, beauty, makeup, and then, of course, lots of apparel campaigns. But what I realized early on was photography is just a piece of the puzzle. When you shoot video, I feel like it opens up a lot of doors, and it allows you to tell more of a story with video. So, where you say the whole adage of a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, a video is worth 1,000,000 words because a video incorporates audio, it incorporates movement, it incorporates much more of a story being told. And although I'm in love with photography and I did my bachelor's, my MFA to be a professor of photography, video really, I think, captivated my heart. And not only, do I shoot as a, still photographer, but then I got into filming for a major TV show called Great Escapes. It airs on CBS to over 2 million viewers, airs on Saturdays on CBS. I've been doing this for years. Love this show. All the visuals here you see, they're all, I did all the cinematography, all the video work, with the exception of a few of the sequences where I'm in the scene as a host, but everything else is done by me, whether it's underwater, aerial, on the ground, and I'm incorporating my photographic cameras while filming this stuff. So oftentimes I'm shooting with a Canon R5C or a Canon R5, which are my favorite cameras of choice. Sony had sponsored me for the first season of Great Escape, so I also had a whole bunch of Sony equipment as well, like A7R2s and things like that. And then, of course, shooting with gimbals when I'm operating for doing the video content. I'm, typically working with a Ronin. I love the DJI Ronin RS4, which is one of my favorites. That is an absolute beast when it comes to, basically camera movement. Where essentially, if you're shooting on a tripod, it gets a little bit boring and stale. And I'd much rather have a lot of action, a lot of movement, a lot of energy, just like you see in this content right here. This is almost exclusively all shot with the Ronin and then also with aerial drone. So anyway, a lot of us also have drones too. So what I encourage you guys to do is bust out of what you're doing right now with just shooting still photography and get into doing video. And there are a few differences. There's a few secrets. There's a few nuances that I did want to talk about when it comes to shooting video. And a part of it is, if you look at these movements and the camera actions here, you're going to notice something. I mean, it all looks, kind of cool, kind of slick and everything. But there's more to it than that. There's more to it than just, those slick camera actions, because we're not just shooting it like we would as a photographer. We're shooting it actually a little bit different. We're shooting it as a filmmaker. And the difference between shooting it as a filmmaker and shooting it as a photographer is essentially, when you're a photographer, you're essentially framing the shot, meaning you're framing the images, you're framing the people within the scene. And if you get pretty sophisticated with it, you're framing them for, say, a magazine editorial, meaning there's like a seam down the middle, a double page spread. You're trying to go for a really dynamic story and creating some beautiful, scenes in which you can shoot either an individual for a vertical, like a scene such as this, where essentially we're framing the model in the center of the image, or we're shooting something like this, where maybe the model is off to the side, but again, it's going to be, something like this, where a model is going to be off to the side and there's a seam down the middle, right? Something like this, same type of thing. But all we're trying to figure out here is the model in the scene. We're not going to shoot this where like the model is not in the frame, right? That makes sense because we're photographers, right? And a lot of photographers actually frame the model right in the center, but I always recommend, of course, if you're shooting an editorial, having the model off to one side, because it's going to be a much stronger viewpoint. Now, then you get into a little bit more dynamic scenes like this, which tells a lot of story. And there's a seam right down the middle, gorgeous sequence. But again, it's just still. So we're capturing the models in the middle. However, if you're shooting a video version of this, it's very different. Now, some of the tactics I would do would be to shoot something like this, where we're filming out of frame, into frame, out of frame. And what I mean by that is we're actually capturing it where, as we're filming, we're going to start the camera rolling before we even see the people in the scene. And I know we wouldn't really do that as a photographer, right? I mean, you wouldn't just photograph a wall, right? You're going to photograph the models in the scene. But when we're filming, we often do that. We might film, I might start this scene where we're filming all the way off to the right here, and I'm just shooting, I see lights and equipment and, assistants and stuff like that. But I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to move right to left, and I'm going to create this beautiful movement, almost like, at big motion pictures, it's usually on a dolly or like a little, almost like a little train on a track, and it goes from right to left. Or you might use a crane, and you have a giant crane with an arm that's moving the camera. But I really love the movement of, using a gimbal, which like a DJI Ronin, where you can, move along with the models. But I love doing stuff like this, right? It's beautiful. But again, we're going to film from out of frame, into frame, out of frame. And that's one of the things, one of the big adjustments a lot of photographers run into when they're working with me, is learning how to operate the gimbal in that different way, operating camera as a filmmaker as opposed to photographer, because it is very different. It's very different. So there are some certain techniques I like to use that work really well as far as filming, as far as framing. One of them is we talked about right to left or left to right. So going back and forth, right? That's really beautiful. Another methodology is going up to down. And you'll probably see a lot of this in my work. A lot of going up to down, where, I essentially am holding the gimbal and I'm going like up into the model's face and then down out of frame and then back up again. I do that pretty often. Now, the next one would be just stable, right? And that's okay too. We stay still, but then the model's moving across the scene. And a good example of that would be something like this. This was actually shot at our New York workshop production at a $40 million mansion. But something like this, where we were a bit more stable, still holding the gimbal, but we're staying a little bit stable right there. And then getting these really tight shots. Those are really handy, especially if we're shooting the girl doing a lot of movement, or they're doing a lot of poses up close. So that's a stable one. These are all techniques in which, you know, each one has its own need or use, I should say, when shooting. Another would be to essentially capture a frame where we're moving in, meaning we're moving in towards the model. Let's see. I think this one captures some of that, where we're moving in towards, so we're pulling in, we're pushing into the model, or you can do pulling out. But and then of course here's a stable one as she turns. Love this. Absolutely gorgeous. But generally, either you need to move, or the model needs to move, or both of you need to move. Whereas in photography, you know, it's not always that case. Sometimes a model poses and then they're still, and then you're still, and then you photograph, and then you capture that moment. But in video, the more movement, the more cinematic it looks. Like in this scene, we're pulling back as the model's moving. So we're moving and she's moving, right? And then this is more of a problematic scene. You see this is an issue where the gimbal is moving a little bit, where the photographer that was filming this, there was a little bit of jiggle. And that's what we don't want to see. We don't want to see jiggle or movement in the gimbal. Everything needs to be super smooth, like this. That's a nice smooth movement as we're kind of panning out. But I want you guys to look at this type of stuff differently. And when we're filming, or even when we're not filming, but we're, say, watching a movie or watching a TV show, I think it's really important to pay attention to all the camera movements. And I think that the more you pay attention to the cinematography or the camera movements and essentially the camera angles, the stronger you're going to be as a filmmaker. Now, let's get into settings. So a lot of photographers that are transitioning into filming, they're a little bit unfamiliar with film cameras, meaning motion picture cameras, but they're more comfortable with photographic cameras. And yes, the settings are going to be a little bit different. And I think that in the way we're filming is going to be different, whether we're shooting with a filming camera like an Arri Alexa, or we're shooting with a photographic camera. And they are a little bit of a different type of a beast. Now, when we are shooting with, say, a large scale motion picture camera, like an Arri Alexa, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. These are, oops, sorry. I don't know why that's. Here we go. An Arri Alexa. This would be an Alexa 35. This is an absolutely beast of an Arri Alexa. This is like a major motion picture camera with a camera, with all the equipment, with the lenses, with all the attachments. This can be anywhere from like a $50,000 to $100,000 camera kit to do something like this. But most motion pictures, and if you ever track this, if you look at like, what cameras are used for major motion pictures, usually about 7 out of 10 of all motion pictures are shot with an Arri Alexa. So that gives you an idea. But it's a different kind of camera, and it's obviously it requires a lot more stability. Something like this needs more of a crane to operate it, or large scale tripod. It's a lot harder to balance an Arri Alexa on a gimbal. It is doable, but it's a lot harder, right? So a lot of times we're going to be using a bit more of a significant and stable approach to something like that. So when it comes to what we're doing, is we're doing stuff like this, where we're a little bit smoother and we're operating a little bit lighter. So this is just me shooting with a Canon R5 on a gimbal. I also love the R5C, but the R5, the regular R5, seems to work a little bit better on a gimbal because it's a little bit lighter, and it tends to work a little bit better and smoother from my experience, even though the R5C is going to be a better camera because it doesn't overheat. But both of them are going to shoot at 8K and they're also both 45 megapixel cameras. So the absolute beast. But a big difference between filming with, say, an Arri Alexa and shooting with a Canon R5 or R5C, or they also have the R5 II, Mark II. The one big difference is the innate ISO. So when you're shooting with a major motion picture camera like an Alexa or a Red camera, oftentimes the native ISO is going to be around 3200. And so that seems crazy. As a photographer, that's really high. Our ISO is usually around 100, and that's where we like to keep it generally. But this native ISO is 3200 on a major motion picture camera. So they're designed to film in a bit of a lower light. So if you're working with a large scale camera, oftentimes we're going to use a lot of neutral density filters. We're going to darken everything because you almost have too much light. So with photographic cameras, it's a little bit different. We're going to be, the native ISO, of course, is ISO around ISO 100 typically. So what we're going to do is the settings are different. It does allow for us to shoot in different, I would say, brighter lighting conditions, whereas filming cameras allow us to shoot in darker lighting conditions. So there's advantages and disadvantages, but at least oftentimes you don't need a neutral density filter. That being said, depends on what you're filming. I do love using graduated neutral density filters if you're shooting something that's more, a super bright sky, or you're shooting something where it's nature and you can, capture that beautiful stuff. Otherwise, though, I'm not going to use ND filters. I'm just going to, go on the gimbal, and oftentimes I'm going to have a generally, I want to keep my ISO around 100, and you can go up to 400, 500. That's okay, but I like to keep it lower. And then, oftentimes, what I'm going to do is, I know a lot of people that operate with ARRI Alexas and stuff. A lot of times, they are going to go for a more shallow depth of field. The f2.8s, f4s, f5.6 depends on what lens they're using. I personally really like to have a little bit more latitude. And the reason that is, having a deeper aperture is because, first of all, my camera can do it. The cameras, they have that capability of doing, even actually getting more light. And you can pop up your ISO if you absolutely have to. But also, if you shoot with a deeper aperture, what I really love about it is that you don't have to worry so much about focus. The R5, for instance, focuses really, really, really well with its autofocus and tracking. So you can basically just open up your camera, and you press on where, the areas of your face, the face that you want to capture, and then it'll track it. And generally, it's very accurate. The problem with ARRI Alexas and Red cameras is that they generally don't have that system, and you usually have to have a focus puller, meaning that you have your cinematographer who is guiding lighting direction, where the lights are going to be, and also where the cameras are going to be. And oftentimes there might be a 2 or 3 camera setup. Whereas with, when we're filming, oftentimes we don't have, as a photographer, we usually don't have that opportunity to have multiple cameras. We just have one. Now, if we're just operating with one, of course, we kind of have to do everything. We have to be a cinematographer, a camera operator. We have to be our first AC and our second AC. First assistant camera, second assistant camera. But on a big video production shoot, whether it's television or whether it's motion picture, oftentimes we do have a cinematographer who's kind of guiding the whole visuals. We then have camera operators. Usually the cinematographer is not going to operate the camera. We have camera operators, and we have usually camera operator 1, camera operator 2, camera A, camera B. And then we're going to have a first AC and a second AC. And sometimes we may even have a first AC and a second AC for each camera. So essentially, you may have 3 people operating that camera. So and one of the people is going to be essentially putting together the camera, and another person is focusing, like, since we're using a run and gun as a photographer, we don't have that latitude. So the beautiful thing about our photographic camera is such good quality autofocus. And I love having fantastic autofocus, is an absolute lifesaver. And that's what kind of the prior photographic video. This way, we're doing fast, 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 fast. We're shooting something like this, and then we're creating this beautiful content. Sharp, all this was shot with an R5, as well as so, that we can integrate those really well. Now, as a photographer filming video, so we're talking about settings here. It's not only, I'm going to go slightly deeper aperture just so we don't run into any issues with focus, because we don't have a focus puller. We're just relying on our autofocus. So oftentimes I'm going, like, say, f7, f9, f11. And somewhere around there, maybe even f13, I'm generally not going super shallow because I don't want to run into any focus issues after that. The next thing is our shutter speed. Now, there's a lot of different interpretations of this, but kind of the what a lot of people do say that are experts are that generally put when you're filming with a photographic camera, set your shutter speed to double what your frame rate is. Now, as a photographer, we're not used to frame rate. So a frame rate is essentially how many frames per second are we shooting. And of course, we kind of think about this in time because photography is a relationship between light and time. Essentially, when you're photographing with a high shutter speed, say, you know, 500th of a second or 1/1000th of a second, it's really, really quick, right? Well, essentially, when we're filming, we're recording multiple frames in that second. And oftentimes, major television and motion pictures are usually between 24 frames a second and 30 frames a second. So there's 30 different exposures that make up that video. And that's pretty common when you're shooting television or movies. It's going to be between 24 or 30. If you're going to go slow-mo, which you're seeing right here, this is all filmed at 120 frames a second. And 120 frames a second, obviously, it slows everything down, but it has that really beautiful look. And if we're shooting anything for, whether it's swim, whether it's fashion, or stuff for my travel show, I love shooting at 120 frames a second. I almost exclusively shoot at 120 frames a second. The hard thing is making sure that you have a camera that can shoot at 120 frames a second in 4K. Now, a lot of the cameras do these days, but that's more of a recent thing. For years and years and years, there's a lot of high-end cameras that couldn't shoot in 120 frames a second at 4K, and now most of them do at full frame. And that's what we want. We want to have 120 frames a second in 4K at least, and that's generally how I record everything. And also, we want to match it with an aerial drone. So when we're filming, oftentimes, say I'm filming 120 frames a second, I might put my exposure at 240, and then of a second as my shutter speed, I put a frame rate at 120 frames a second, so it's my speed, and then I put my aperture depending on obviously how much light is coming in based on that relationship. Oftentimes f7, f9, f11, f13, somewhere in there. And then I'm going to generally try to keep my ISO over on 1. And then my white balance, I like to keep it usually daylight white balance most of the time. If it's cloudy, I might adjust it to that just to have the right color. I don't want, in photography, it's a lot easier to change the color balance. In video, it's a little harder. You can use what they call a LUT or an LUT, and that can adjust the overall color of an image, but it does get a little bit more challenging adjusting color in post-production for video as opposed to photography. So I do recommend making sure your color is accurate. I really love shooting with daylight or if it's in a cloudy day. Anyway, you got some great questions. So we've got let's see. Oh my gosh, we had some technical issues. Sorry about that, guys. Hope you guys can hear me now. So sorry about that. Jane Ritchie says we're okay. You want to sounds like we need a better connection. So Ivan Zukoska, 120 frames a second at 4K, absolutely. That makes all the difference in the world. It's going to give you the absolute best quality when filming in slow motion. Absolutely. Awesome. If you guys have any questions, please throw it in the chat. I'd love to answer. Okay, so Ivan Zukoska asked, do the students switch from photography to film during the scene, or do they take turns? That's a really good question, Ivan. Now, when you're referring to the photography workshop series, generally what we do is we like to have everyone photograph the scene first. So we're going to focus just on the photography. We're going to focus on just photographing and creating that moment with video first. And then after that, we're going to go in and we're going to film it. And the reason I like to do that is because, when you start filming, it kind of breaks it up. It kind of, you're going to go from a lot of different angles. It might take a while to film. It becomes a little bit more dynamic. You might need more than one person to help you, meaning one person to operate gimbal and another person to record on the camera or adjust focus, things like that. So, and by the way, here, because we're at my 49-room palace in France, I thought I would show you a little video that we shot at the 49-room castle here in France. I'm sitting in the room in the bottom left corner there, the parlor room of the French Dream Castle. Now, when you're uh, after you're done photographing, every photographer takes their turn photographing unbelievable, mind-blowing content. I then highly recommend you take a turn with the gimbal. And and obviously not everybody wants to, but those of you guys who love shooting video and want to shoot video, I recommend you guys do it for every single thing. And you can film every single scene of while we're at one of our edit photos. This is a scene, obviously, we shot this at the Dream Castle at our last production. This is a Dolce Gabbana model, the male model. The girl model's been in Gucci, she's been in Vogue, and we brought them into the Dream Castle and we shot these unbelievable sequences. And of course, what we did is we photographed it all first, then we switched over to video. The other reason we do that too is that oftentimes if we're photographing but we're using strobe lights, you can't use strobes when shooting video. So what we'll do is we'll photograph with the strobe lights and then take those down, adjust it to video. And with video, we're either going to use oftentimes giant bounces, so like 8x8 foot silver bounces, or we're going to use scrims, which are like 8x8 foot 1 1/4 stop scrims, or we might work with both. So either scrims, bounces, or both. And then of course, sometimes we bring in large scale motion picture lights. One of the things I also can recommend too is if you guys don't have big video lights, just use a ring light. Ring lights are absolutely fantastic. And I think that, most of you guys all have them. And I think that ring lights, they put out a lot of light. They're absolutely fantastic. And I think that if you can, if you have access to a ring light, feel free to throw that into the mix because it really does make a difference. It can really add a little bit of pop to the scene. So feel free to do that. Generally, what I love to do the most is I really, really love to create scenes where we're using natural light or the manipulation of natural light, just like you see here. This is all manipulation of natural light. I had strobes available, but it didn't look as good. I liked to work with natural light. And I think that more and more now, especially because we're trying to kind of battle up against AI, we want our content to look as realistic as possible. We want it to look beautiful, stunning, but also real and authentic. And we don't want to be pinned as like an AI photographer or filmmaker. The beautiful thing about video, though, is although photography, which is being, obviously AI is taking over pretty substantially right now, the great thing about video is that it hasn't been taken over yet. And I think it's going to be a while until that happens. So video still has a ways to go. And I think that right now, the budgets are still super high for video. There's more need for video than ever before because there's so many different outlets for it. And I say, get into doing video, you guys. It is so valuable, and it's something that you are it'll give you way more of an opportunity to land more campaigns, to make more money, and to really crush it as a photographer that can not just do video, but also has the opportunity to kind of take it to the next level. Or not just do photography, but take it to the next level, both photography and video for your client. And you can essentially triple or even quadruple your budgets because you can end up making way more doing both of those things. It's going to be much more. So anyway, if you guys are a little bit nervous about doing video, don't worry about it. This is something we've got your back. This is something in which we're really, really heavily involved in with the photography workshop series. And we incorporate video in each and every one of our productions. Like we're really, really heavily invested in video. So we want to make sure that when you guys are creating all your amazing images, that at the end of the day, you also have video content. In fact, we just at the last workshop we just did in Miami, I think we shot like 5 terabytes of video. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. It was awesome. It was awesome. We shot so much video content, and it really is just because the photographers are so involved with it. They just loved it. They went nuts over doing video. I know Jonathan and Brandon and Matt, you guys all took the reins and did a ton of video with that one. It was a lot of fun. And then some photographers, they want to stick with more photography, and that's totally fine. I know Mike Weilet He was there. He was creating some amazing stuff. But yeah, our photographers are now converted to amazing filmmakers. And I'd love to see you guys create all that magic and make it happen. All right. Now, the next thing is I want to talk about is being a director, because it's a little different than just being a standard photographer. As a photographer, we're just thinking about more sort of visuals, and we're just thinking about how something's going to look on camera. But as a director, we need to think about not only the visuals, because we have a cinematographer handling that, but we're guiding the cinematographer. We also need to think about how we're coaching the models or the talent, what we're saying to them, what the story is going to be. Is it lining up with the vision of the script? So you have to think about the dialogue. You have to think about what they're saying. You have to think about a beginning, middle, and end, and a plot. You have to think about not only the visuals, but communicating with the actors to get the most out of them, or in this case, the models to get the most out of them. So as a director, you've got a lot of different hats to wear, and you've got to think about all these different angles. So, when we're transitioning from photographer to director, you got to think about doing all of this, because you're obviously probably going to be doing the cinematography because you're going to be doing video. You're probably going to be doing cinematography and camera operation. So you're essentially a DP and a camera operator. You probably don't have an AC, so you're going to be your own first AC and second AC. Then you're going to be a director. You're going to be directing the scenes. And you're oftentimes, I'm involved in casting. I have a lot of wardrobe direction. I've got, I'm producing the shoot, so making it all come together. I'm producing it, essentially being like a line producer. So, I mean, I'm wearing like 10 hats as a photographer transitioning to video. But the cool thing about that is there's so much experience doing that in the photography world that it makes it a lot easier for me to do it, and I can wear all these different hats in the motion picture. And I really like doing it. So this way, I can really become more valuable to the clientele. If I'm doing something, I'm doing a big video project for a client. The cool thing about that is that I offer so much value to them because I can wear all these different hats, and I'm not just a camera guy, right? I can be above the line and below the line and everything in between, which is fantastic. And by the way, if you guys know what that means, essentially above the line are the people like the executive producers, the producers, if there's like a celebrity involved, people at a really high level are going to be above the line. People below the line are going to be more of like camera operators. They're going to be first AC, second AC, basically people that they get paid less. They're a little bit more of just a work for hire kind of thing. And essentially, there's a line, and it's below the line and above the line, and that's kind of how we see it in video. And obviously, it's a little different in photography, but you have to get used to it. Now, what I do want to announce, and I want to discuss because we're on right now, and I have all of you amazing photographers on, and many of you guys I've worked with before personally, is I'm filming my new TV show, Chateau DIY Australia. It's going to be super exciting, and this is something that I literally am in the midst of filming. I've been filming all week here at my 49-room palace in France, with also an image of the castle in the autumn. It looks amazing. It's all the vines turned from green, right. But we're shooting this amazing story at the castle. I'm hosting it, and and also I'll have credits as camera as well as producing in it because I'm heavily involved because of the content that I shot as well as content of me and of course of my castle. So there's a lot of different aspects that a lot of different hats I'm wearing in this. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. I've been filming all week, and we've been doing some amazing stuff. This is going to air globally. It's going to start off airing in the UK and Australia, and then eventually in the United States. So it's going to be really, really cool. And it's going to be telling the story of essentially what I did. In the midst of COVID, I bought this crazy 49-room castle. I bought it sight unseen. I never even went here, but I bought it sight unseen, and I've invested everything I have into it. I've invested so much time, mostly my energy, and everything into this castle. I've spent millions of dollars, and I've created this unbelievable palace. So I've transitioned it from a castle from the 1200s into a palace like Versailles. So as you can see, I'm sitting in the and it looks pretty awesome. So anyway, but that's essentially what this TV show is about. So anyway, there's interview aspects. We're interviewed on camera. There's all these different moments. Right now, we're in the midst of actually designing a head maze. Literally 10 minutes before this webinar got on, I literally was doing it and designing a hedge maze, almost just in a courtyard of a castle. So it takes a while for it to develop into that, but that is one of the factors. Anyway, but when thinking about this and when shooting this this TV show, there's so many factors that get involved. And if you guys, we're looking at that deck. I have it's like essentially a 56-page show deck that I developed for the show. All the different episode sequences. We have an initial 5 episodes that are slated that we're filming, and then it's very likely we'll get renewed for second season, hopefully a third season and fourth season as well. And we'll be filming a whole bunch more. We're starting off just with a 5 episode slate, and then we're going to move on to hopefully many more, and then do a spinoff. That's the idea. But this is the thing: I've created a brand, and I'm not just a photographer. I'm not just that guy behind the camera taking pictures. I've created a brand of who I am, not only as a photographer, but also as a director, also as a character, also as a host. And throughout that, it really adds a lot of value to who I am when contacting clients to shoot video. Because think about it this way. If I contact a client and say I want to shoot a commercial campaign for the Ritz-Carlton, right? And I happen to I just shot at the Ritz-Carlton Maldives for my television show, Great Escapes, which is amazing. And I just shot this amazing content there for Great Escape. I also own this 49-room in France that's ultra luxury and amazing. That's right in line with, essentially with the Ritz-Carlton brand. And I'm a persona. I've built a brand of who I am. So all these things kind of factor in. So if I was to try to reach out to the Ritz-Carlton, the chances of them, booking me on their next campaign, are actually pretty good because, I've worked with their brands before. I am a personality. I've created some, in fact, here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I was just there filming with, this is one of their premier properties. This is the Ritz-Carlton Maldives. Absolutely stunning property. And I shot this for the Great Escapes, and then also, obviously, the resort as well. But if I was to shoot their next full-scale national campaign here in the United States, this adds a lot of value because I have a brand of who I am. I've got some amazing, beautiful video content that we shot from all these different angles that we're talking about, left to right, up to down, down to up, aerial drone, all these different sequences, and then we're cutting them together into these amazing moments. But of course, this is more B-roll, essentially content we call B-roll, which is just like video footage of people doing things and not talking. We also have essentially interviews with us talking on camera about how amazing that Ritz-Carlton Maldives is. So that's a whole other aspect, but that's something that I want to share with you. So it becomes a little bit more dynamic when we're pitching a client because we have to think about all these angles, and especially when it comes to video, being a brand and being a personality really does make a difference. I encourage you guys to build that, not only on social media, but also, build your persona of who you are, your character, what you can say to camera, and even if it's just meeting people in person, just so that people fall in love with you and who you are. Okay, I would also love to invite a couple of you guys on to speak as panelists. McCall Jones, I know you have attended an epic workshop with me in which we did a tremendous amount of video. I would love for you to jump on as well. And you were talking about LUTs, and I think that, I've mentioned the LUTs earlier, but I would love for you to talk about that as well. And because he makes a really good point. Paul says, don't forget to mention if you want to use LUTs, it's best to shoot in the log profile to get the maximum detail and exposure latitude to maximize your image quality and enable more of your video in post-production. It's absolutely right. Now, that being said, if you guys aren't super heavy in video, like if you're not super comfortable with that and super comfortable with editing, and you just want to shoot a bunch of amazing video and get it out there, then I would say like it's okay just to shoot it with whatever color profile that your camera has set up. It's going to be the best quality, the best light, the best look out of camera. If you want to do something that's super high end and you're going to have a lot of time and energy and resources to edit it, then yeah, go ahead and film it in log. Go ahead and add in a lot later, which is essentially the color profile. And think about when you're posting on social media and you're posting on like Instagram. There are all these different like essentially different ways in which like filters you can add to your video reel. Well, a LUT is basically that. It's like a filter that you add to the whole thing. And essentially that can be really handy. And I do use it if I have like a major client where we're shooting like a huge commercial. But for a lot of the stuff that I do, honestly, I shoot a lot of stuff where it's just, I don't even apply a LUT. Most of the content you see of mine was just shot straight out of camera. And I have done very, very little work to do it in post. I like to do things perfect in camera as possible with as little post as possible. It looks real, it looks authentic, and it has a lot of amazing color. But if you have a really demanding client and it's a super high-end campaign, then take what calls it. I love that. But McCall, if you want to jump on, I'd really love to have you on as well, and talking about your experience doing video, as well as the great Jane Ritchie as well. And Evan Siegel, because Evan, you just got you did some incredible video with me when we did your one-on-one down in Sydney, Australia. We just did that a couple of months ago. And we've got some incredible stuff down in Sydney, Australia on a yacht. And Evan did some epic stuff where we shot top models out on a yacht in the Sydney Harbor. And we did an incredible video. It was absolutely. Even show you guys. Oh, there's the great Jane Ritchie. And before I bring you on, I just wanted to show you because I was just talking about Evan. I want to showcase some of that content of Evan's before I miss out. Yeah, love this. We just did this, and we did whole video sequences in Sydney, both with aerial drone as well as with we shot with gimbals with an R5. It was amazing. It was absolutely cool. Absolutely love it. And here's another one. But when we're shooting this one, the sequence, it was awesome. But I have to say, like when you're shooting video content on a yacht, I recommended that we shoot a lot of it with drone, just because it needs space. And shooting this close to a model made it pretty hard doing video with a gimbal. So we did some up close tight shots. We did a lot of stuff with an aerial drone, and it looked amazing. And of course, we all hid like inside the cabin, and then we shot the aerial drone. But we did have a really kind of funny experience as we were filming this with the aerial drone. We're inside the cabin of the yacht. And as we were filming it, there was like this huge race going on. It's the Sydney to Hobart yacht race. And it's like, it's one of the biggest yacht races in the world, right? And there was like, I think on that day we were there were like 600 yachts, like in the harbor, whipping around. If you want to see what I'm talking about here, I'm going to actually show you an example. So these type of yachts, these are professional sailing yachts, and they were whipping around through the harbor, and crazy enough, this catamaran sailed like while I'm filming with the drone, and I'm doing a 360 around our yacht filming that top model. This catamaran swooped right in front of our boat, like within really, really short distance, and literally caught my drone in its sail. It was crazy, and it like took my drone out of the air and it fell into the boat. It was amazing. And of course, I'm inside the cabin. I'm like, oh my God, like my drone, where is it? And I went up to the top to look, and I couldn't tell which boat it was because there were so many yachts swarming around us. And I just kind of like picked one, and I'm like, follow that guy. And we chased them down, and crazy enough, they actually tried to steal it and like drive away with it. But eventually we caught up to them and got it back. This is kind of a crazy story. But anyway, that is one hazard, obviously. And also there was actually a fatality on that day of some another yacht crashing into another yacht. But it was a wild, wild, wild day. Okay. Um, and Jane, you were just on. I would love to actually invite you back. I'd love to have you on, Jane. Good to see you. And I know you're coming to the master class in October, and you're going to be doing a ton of video of that one, which is going to be absolutely epic. We're going to be shooting some absolutely stunning content. Now, the next thing I wanted to get into is your video reel. Okay. Now, having a video reel is really, really, really critically important because just like having a 40 image cohesive body of work as a photographer, we also need to have a video reel of amazing content that just wows and dazzles your client. Now, this is my video reel, and this is my brand, Production, and essentially you can showcase. This is sequences of my video, and this gives you a little bit of an idea of what professional video looks like. Now, this is a mix of content from not only my big television commercials that I shoot, but also the photography workshop series, a bunch of content. A lot of this was on from the photography workshop series, as well as celebrities, and then television content. So it's kind of a mix. But this is an example of a professional video reel. This is more of my overall reel. I also have specific videos for hair campaigns, beauty campaigns, beverage campaigns, fashion campaigns, things like that, as well as lifestyle. But this is kind of my overall one, and I've this is my master reel that I share to a lot of big Fortune 500 companies. Give them an idea of who we are, what we can shoot, and give you that. Notice it's fast, 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 fast. It's very quick. You know, generally I like a video reel to be about a minute and a half tops. Try not to make it any longer than that. If you can even cut it down to like a minute, that's awesome. And of course, usually commercials are done in 30-second spots, so it's okay to showcase that as well. This one, I think, went on, it's about a minute and a half to two. And this is a little bit long side, but there's so much that I wanted to pack into this. But generally, fast, 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 fast. Each clip is like a second or less. You know, there's a couple that might be a second and a half, but generally they're very fast. And it kind of gives you an idea of everything. And then it also showcases that, which was essentially all of these brands that we've worked with, give you an idea of brands raving about who we are. You know, big brands talking about who we are. So that's one way to present. And another way to present is to just show your commercials, the campaigns you've actually done, and give the client an idea of what that looks like. So I do that as well. It depends on the client and what they're looking for. But there are some who they want to see actual 30-second spots, and this is an example of those. And this one, and this is why it's cool to be able to do video as a photographer, because I got hired on this. This is a $100,000 shoot for social media. This is a $100,000 campaign, and it's just very nice. And this was we actually shot this on the professional, but $100,000 budget, and like a 2-day shoot. And this is something that typical kind of beauty video campaign for me that I would do, and that kind of gives you a little bit of a taste of filming for photographers. Now, if you guys want to see what something like this looks like with the actual budget, the presentation, the proposal, I'm going to get into that as well. Now, this is something that based on that campaign that some clients totally fell in love with. I had another campaign that approached me, and through my production company, and they wanted to do something for it was essentially another brand that is more of like about women empowerment, very similar to what we do with the hair campaign, but what we're going for was this brand called Tessa Jones, and they wanted to do this whole campaign on audacity to be a woman. And this is going to give you an example of what my proposal looks like. And I would do this both for still and video, but especially for video, it gives you a little bit more. So something like this. So it's got who I am, who my team is, and because it takes a team, it's not just me by myself. I'm going to have my, um, I'm essentially a director and producer. I also have executive producer, a four-time Emmy award-winning writer. I've got PRs, image production. I've got cover letter. I've got my director's treatment, approach, my solution to the campaign. I've got my mission, emotions, tagline, target audience. My director's treatment is like written out of what the story is going to be. And this is based on the conversations I had with the clients. The format, 30-second spot, and then broadcast, it's going to be in cable TV, spots for Lifetime, Bravo, OWN, BET, Gala, cable streaming, social media, etc. And then here's my director's treatment of the production. So we've got the locations, 3 locations. We've got the products, essentially jewelry, dresses, accessories, stuff like that. And then this is the visual references. Now this wasn't chosen by me. This was actually chosen by the client. They love this like liquid gold campaign. So they wanted me to emulate the Kim Crawford campaign. So they love this. It was like a very strong, like women being powerful, everybody looking at them, and they walk into the room and they kind of steal the show. So that's okay. Then I showcase my brands, my different links to websites that are appropriate for what I'm doing. And this includes like my production companies and my my photography, lifestyle photography, social. And then here are actual spots, like campaigns that are in line with what we're doing. So this one is like a hair campaign that I did 4 30-second campaigns of it, and then I showed in this one. It kind of showcases the overall like the long version reel, a little bit longer than I normally would share, but this is kind of the long version reel of it to give them an idea, because this is really what they're looking for. Is this whole like be yourself, be powerful, etc. Women's empowerment. This was like kind of the vibe, right? So I have all these clickable links. And this is in my treatment. If you guys aren't doing this already for your still photo shoots already, definitely do this now. And of course, for video, you have to. This is absolutely like definitely required for something like that. This showcases, the kind of look and feel that they're going for, and they like that. They're going for that African American vibe that they want. That's the kind of vibe they're going for because it honors an African American woman. So this is right in line with what they want. This is a camping app. Give them kind of a feel. You notice some of the movements here as if in filmmaking. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of like 360 around models using gimbal. There are these interview shots where we're actually interviewing the models, we're talking on camera. There's this, which is B-roll, which is mixed in, where it's moment, the model flipping their hair, and then women talking on camera like this. So it's showcasing, also some of that nostalgic solar flare look and all that. And I remember, I'm a huge fan of solar flare, so I shot tons of solar flare, and like the client made me like really tone that down because like I was like the whole thing was just blown out, but they wanted a little bit less, so we had to tone it back. But some of the moments I got to keep in. But it's about women and how they feel. But anyway, so that's kind of the vibe, and this is what they're going for. The next thing would be, as I'm going through this treatment, this is, these are the different moments. You can click on each one of those and see the different campaigns. And then here's the actual budget. This is what a lot of you guys probably want to see. $194,340. That's pretty standard. $200,000 budget. Now, this only includes social media usage. This doesn't include usage for television, like commercials essentially. So this is just for social. Now, in addition to this is where things start to add up as a photographer or as a photographer shooting video, is that you're making money as a director. So there's like a director fee in here. I can show you guys. So I'm billing them as a director. $5,000 a day for 4 days, 2 filming days of pre-production, post-production, so $20,000 for that. I also bill them as a producer, $2,000 a day for 4 days, and I'm producing it and directing it. I also was a cinematographer, so 2 days of that, $1,000 each. Now, the rest of these people I hired, writer, camera operator, cinematographer, camera, sound engineer, grip, gaffer, production assistant. But the rest of the stuff, a lot of this stuff is going in my pocket. So I handled a lot of locations myself. I already have liability insurance, so I'm already paying for that. So that's just going back into my pocket. Equipment, I own all my equipment. Now, this is another secret. A lot of photographers, they own a bunch of equipment. The only reason to ever own equipment is if you can rent it to yourself for a huge campaign. And if you don't have a six-figure campaign coming up, don't ever buy equipment. That's just ridiculous. It's a waste of money. And that's the way I've always done it. I never need to buy equipment. It's completely useless, doesn't help me, there's no benefit to buying equipment because these clients, they don't care what you're shooting. And there's no reason to buy equipment unless you have a huge campaign that requires a bunch of equipment that you don't have. In that circumstance, use that budget to buy the equipment and then rent it back to yourself and make money. But if you don't have a client paying for that campaign and that budget, then don't even bother. Don't buy equipment. Don't waste your money on that. Spend it on your reel. Spend it on your video reels. Spend it on your portfolio. Spend it on your marketing. And that's what I strongly recommend. Now, the next thing is, in this case, I did buy equipment and then I rented it back to myself. And then I also, the rest of it was just equipment that I owned already, rented it back to myself. I would say I owned pretty much all the stuff except for the, I don't know, I had to pay for that. It wasn't. Then catering, that's a hard cost. Take it out of that. And then talent models. Now I don't mark these up. These are the straight like talent budgets, but essentially the overall talent budget was like $38,000, and that includes the talent plus their agency fees. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think that I made probably about I don't know, 130,000 or so on this one, approximately, at the end of the day. But the real money, you guys, is in the details. And I know a few of you guys who I've worked with before, I've mentioned stuff like this before, but the real money is made on media buy. Now, in this circumstance, this is a cool thing about being a filmmaker as a photographer, is that you can get more involved in the media buys. Because as a photographer, usually you're not handling too much of the media, or that you're not dealing with people making the media buys as often. You can still, and the media buys are generally not going to be as big. But as a filmmaker, the media buys can be huge. Because oftentimes a filmmaker, if they're doing something like this and they're spending $100,000 on my campaign, they're generally, that's about 10% of the media. The media buy is going to be, production's usually about 10%. In this case, the media buy was like $1.5 million. And that was the overall media buy for for the placement on video, on like airing on TV. So I showed you the budget just for the production, but then there's the media buy for the placement. And in this case, in my budget, in my proposal, I included lines in there that specifically said that if I shoot this for you, I'm also going to do the media placement. All this takes is a phone call over to, in this case, I just contacted the cable companies, Spectrum or Frontier or Viacom or whoever is dealing with cable networks in your area. And essentially, I contacted you just call their sales. That's all you have to do. It takes 15 minutes. And you speak to them and you just say, hey, I've got this client. They want to run some campaigns. In this case, they wanted some certain networks. They wanted like BET, Bravo, Gala, Lifetime, and OWN, which are Oprah's networks. So they wanted those networks. And they said, okay, no problem. I told them what my budget was. I got, $1.5 million. And I told them that I'm the agency of record. So in this case, I want them to bake into the budget a 15% fee as agency fee to the media buying company. So within this budget, there's a 15% that's hidden that's paid back to me because I'm getting a commission to bring it to this media buying company, or I should say media placement. I'm doing the media. So in this case, I'm charging my client $194,000 for the budget. Then I've got, I'm charging them a 15% usage fee, which is a little high. Sometimes I usually do 10%, but I'm doing a 15% media usage fee. I'm only charging them though a 10% media buying, which is actually lower than normal. So then I've got so I'm making 180,000 off the usage fee. I'm making 120,000 off the media buying fee, and then on the back end, I'm making another 180,000 on the media placement because I'm the agency of record. So you see how this starts to add up? So in the grand scheme of things, I come away from this whole production making in profit about $600,000. And this is where a lot of the magic happens as a filmmaker and not just a photographer. And you can do some crazy things and end up making way more money and opening up way more doors. Not only being able to do this, but also being able to do photography and video and shoot both photographic campaign and the video campaign. And the reason I'm showing you this is because there are a lot more opportunities out there for you than you think as a filmmaker. And I think that as a photographer, you already have the gear and all you need is the expertise. So if you guys are interested, you want to get involved, you want to be part of mastering your filmmaking strategy, get involved in some of our epic productions. I mean, the Photography Workshop series has the most photographic and video production workshops in the world, and I really mean that. The most elite video production workshops in the world, and we do some mind-blowing productions with big-time top talent, top models, supermodels, unbelievable, sometimes celebrities. So, this was one that I absolutely love. We actually shot this at our new workshop. We shot with Steve Franco, which was another Netflix show. But we bring in some really top tier talent at these productions, and it's absolutely like next level. But the content that you're going to shoot is extremely valuable, and it's content that's going to just stand the test of time to be your core going forward to be a successful photographer and filmmaker. And it's something that it really will take you to the next echelon in your career if you have the right content. Now, of course, we have the French Dream Castle. I'm filming, doing my TV show here. And we even have a really fun opportunity because I'm doing the French Dream Castle workshop coming up here in 2 months. And we do have one spot left. But the cool about this one is not only are you going to be at a 49-room palace in France, but what's awesome about this, I confirmed my Michelin star chefs who are going to be here making unbelievable cuisine. We also have a butler who's going to be like literally in a tuxedo waiting on you, hand and foot. I have a masseuse in the massage tower. We have in the round tower that you saw. We actually have a massage room and the masseuse in the tower. On top of that, we're going to be doing 4 massive scale production like the top supermodels from Milan, from Paris, and New York. And we're going to be shooting mind-blowing content on location at this palace, and everything's included. So all the dining experiences, all you have to do is like literally show up at the airport. You don't need to rent a car. You don't need to cover lodging. You don't have to cover food or anything. We take care of everything. So this is an amazing experience, and we're going to be doing heavy filming here. And I am spending a tremendous amount of time, energy, and money making the castle look absolutely exceptional for this production because I'm filming my TV show during our workshop. So not only are we going to shoot this amazing content, but during the workshop, during the Photography Workshop Series experience, and it's happening in July, the last couple days, we have the film crew from the TV show who's going to be there filming for the TV show. And it's going to be the final reveal. And what's special about this castle, this castle was built 2,000 years ago, originally on top of a Roman palace owned by a famous Roman consul, General Marcellus. And then eventually it was built into a castle in the 1280s. And then it was built onto again in the 1500s. And then about 50, 70 years ago, this couple had bought it, who was the creative director and prima ballerina of Paris Ballet. And the prima ballerina, Ghislaine, she danced with Rudolph Honoria, the most famous ballet dancer of all time. And they built the BURBERRY dance studio on the 3rd level. And what's amazing is for my TV show, they wanted to cover this, so all we're doing is like specifically featuring this incredible dance studio and its amazing transformation. We're building it in 24 karat gold. We're creating this unbelievable palatial Versailles level ballet studio, and still keeping the original sprung floors, the original ballet bars, and the mirrors, but everything else is being completely transformed. And this is going to be revealed in the episode of the show and as part of the workshop series. And we're going to have a professional model ballerina dancing along with a violinist performing. It's going to be absolutely immaculate. So anyway, it's going to be super exciting. And this is an amazing opportunity, not only to go through his photographic content, but also insane video content here at French Dream Castle, which is super, super, super exciting. All right. So I'm so sorry, guys, if you guys are having any audio issues here. All right. But anyway, this should be all available in rebroadcast. If you guys have any issues at all, it should be absolutely amazing in rebroadcast. So sorry about that. If you guys are having any problems with that. But if you guys have any other questions, I'd love to jump on and answer them now about mastering filmmaking for photographers. And I know we've covered a tremendous amount, everything from some of the visual sides of it, some of the technical sides, logistical sides, financial aspects of it. We have so many different things that we've covered, so it's kind of like I know it's pretty intensive. The photography workshop series is going to be even more intensive, even more incredible, and I'm super, super, super excited. Anyway, and thank you. I appreciate that, Julian. Julian Wild says he's saying that the audio is good. That's fantastic. Awesome. All right, guys. So on top of all of this, I want you to also just think like it's not so scary after all. A lot of photographers they feel like video is just scary. They feel like video is something where it's like, you know what, this is just too much for me. This is crazy. I'm not used to it. It's like video. I'm a photographer. I'm not a video guy. And I want you to remember that it's honestly, it's not as hard as you think it is. It really isn't. And when it's all said and done, I think that it's really, really important for you guys to do this, especially now, especially with AI taking over photography. Video is like the last vestige to like really blow up and grow in. And this is one of the reasons the Photography Workshop Series has transitioned so heavily into video. And of course, we're always going to be doing epic photographic experiences, but they're going to be always with a heavy, heavy, heavy video component to it, so that video becomes a really, really important factor throughout the whole process. And I think that that's absolutely critically important to have video front and center, so that you guys can master it and you guys can create just absolutely insane content, not only photographically, but with that video that's going to like take you to the next level. And, and I get passionate about this. I love it. I feel like it's a lot of fun. I feel like video is something that it opens up all these doors. It becomes really, really interesting. It becomes unique. It becomes exciting. I feel like you can do so much with video, and you can really tell a story of what it's like. And here, I'll even show you a little bit of, this is a little behind the scenes of our workshop. We just did this workshop, like literally, when was this? Just a few weeks back. And we did some absolutely amazing stuff. And this gives you just a little taste of what behind the scenes of the Photography Workshop Series. On location, it's this amazing beach. We're out in Miami Beach, just shooting this incredible content. And you can see kind of the lighting, the sophisticated lighting as we're getting going, as we're setting up, using giant bounces and scrims and creating that magic so that everything comes together. And I can use that same light to do not only the still photography, but I can also use it for the video. And that's why it gets really cool, because we can use it for video and still photography, and you don't have to, essentially swap it over from, if we're adjusting with a strobe. In fact, here's another one. This is a cool little video clip. This is shot with the aerial drone, and I think he's operating a gimbal right there. I want to say that's probably Brandon right there. and shooting with the gimbal gives you a little bit of a taste of what that looks like, that feeling. And also lighting wise, in this case, like we had a little bit of some harsh sun, so we used a 3/4 scope scrim to just slightly diffuse the model. So we're still using the sun as the key light, and then we use the silver bounce to bounce light right into them, and ended up looking absolutely amazing. But just giving you a little bit of a taste of what some of that stuff looks like behind the scenes, some of that magic, because I know you guys always see these like glitzy, amazing shots when, you know, everything is perfect and everything, but it's also kind of fun to see the behind the scenes of what the, you know, what that kind of looks like. Let's see, and then of course you can do some cool stuff like this over the water. So, and this is a good example of out of frame, because you obviously have the poles right there, into frame, and then it goes out of frame again after this into one of the combo stands in the water. But anyway, but that's just shot by, of course, one of the attendees filming some amazing content right then and there at the Photography Workshop series at our Miami edition, which was absolutely spectacular. This, you could actually see some of the setup of some of the production before we're filming there, with some giant scrims, and we have this insane getup right there with with the scrim, with the attaching it to the bins so that it doesn't blow away, which is pretty sweet. Love that. I'm giving you a little taste of some of the challenges that you have to run into at one of these sequences. But yeah, we do these epic productions on swim, on fashion, on commercial lifestyle advertising, and then of course we have the stuff here at the French Dream Castle, which is really exciting. We have some amazing stuff. All right. So those of you guys who had any challenges with listening to any of the audio, just make sure to watch this in rebroadcast, because it should be perfect in rebroadcast. Thank you guys so much for jumping on. Hopefully you guys learned a little few tidbits about how to master video as a photographer. I can't wait to see you guys in person to get involved in one of these epic experiences so that you can film world-class video content, and you can create content that's going to completely transform your brand, your body of work, and to completely take it to the next level so that you are crushing it in the industry. Make sure to, if you guys haven't already, click on that link and join the Photography Workshop series, and let us know which experience you want to come to next. And I can't wait to see you guys in person to create some epic video and photographic content, and I hope to see you at the castle.